Before we begin, two messages. What mobile platform do companies like eBay, NBC Universal, the Los Angeles Times, Razorfish, and PayPal use to build their cross-platform native applications? Titanium by Apsalar. They aren't alone. There are now over 25,000 apps deployed by Apsalar, which has been called the Rosetta Stone of app development. And you can start now for free. Just go to www.apsalar.com for more information. When my company needed to develop a key mobile product, one that I was counting on as a new source of revenue, I knew exactly who to turn to. Macadamian. They delivered on time with incredible attention to detail, and I was able to get product into customers' hands faster than I ever thought possible. I've personally known them for 10 years, and they do make great products even better. Check them out at www.macadamian.com. Hello everybody and welcome to Untether.tv. This is that place where we bring you these conversations with some of the people that are paving the way in the mobile industry. They are creating things that we didn't know we needed, and today is a perfect example. I am joined from San Francisco, California by Michael Oiknine. So Michael Oiknine runs a company called Apsalar, and I'm going to talk to you about this for a second because like many people, like the web days, just like the mobile days, everybody jumped into this space with 2 feet, 2 hands, head, body, full torso, and said, listen, I'm going to build an app. I'm not only going to build an app, I'm going to measure my success by downloads. I'm going to say, listen, it's a success when I have 10,000, 100,000, or 1 million downloads. And then when they do, they're like, done. Got 1 million downloads. We have succeeded. But, as Michael says, there is life after the download. And now that you've had these people download the application, how are they using it? What are they using it for? Are they using it? These things, what we call analytics, become so important now in order to engage your audience again and re-engage your audience who have downloaded those applications. And I know you guys out there know exactly what I'm talking about. So it's my pleasure to welcome Michael to the show. And we're going to get into this. We're going to get some insight into why this is important, why analytics are important, and what you can do and what you should be measuring in order to be able to help get life after the download. Right, Michael?
That's perfect.
All in like 7 minutes. So let's get rolling. How's that?
That's I'm with you.
All right. So before we begin, I mean, that's what we're going to be talking about here on this episode. But why don't we talk about the company to begin with? First of all, you're San Francisco. You're founded in 2010. Why? What did you see that made you found this company?
It's quite simple, really. I was one of the co-founder of a company back in 2000 that did behavioral targeting on the web. And we're a little bit early, but you know what it is. You always need to focus where the puck is going, not where the puck has been, right?
Wayne Gretzky, great Canadian.
Exactly. And basically what we've learned throughout the 9 years that we run the company, and I say we because it's the same team that really co-founded Apsalar as well.
Nice.
What we've learned is that in a very busy, busy consumer market, when you want to have your marketing message, you want to have your product stand above the noise, you need to find ways to talk more in a personalized way to your consumers. And what we've really shown with numbers, what we've really shown with actually performance analysis is that the use of behavioral information to target users and talk to them in a one-on-one basis, and especially also to do retargeting, was a great way to do 2 things as a marketer. One, to get your message across and above the noise, and also to get a very, very good ROI on that spend. And this is really the essence of the learning that I got after selling that company to Axiom Corporation, which is a huge data company here in the U.S. And I was sitting on the beach really after selling the company during my sabbatical, and I saw that huge iOS this huge iPhone ecosystem exploding in front of our eyes with the genius of really Steve Jobs, quite frankly, bringing the user experience to a level that is not only acceptable but enjoyable on that small form factor. And that really unleashed that mobile ecosystem that we've been talking about since 2000.
Mm-hmm.
I put one and one together and I said, gee, what's going to happen with this? There's going to be a glut of mobile apps out there that are going after the same consumer to address the same problem. And I'm not talking about apps that really have no reasons to exist. I'm talking about apps that really have a great reason to exist because they actually address a problem. They address a need that consumers have. But guess what? These apps are 10, 20, 100 of them addressing the same problem. So they're going to end up having the same issue as web marketer had, which is, how do I stand above the noise?
Right.
How do I keep a great relationship with my users? How can I personalize the experience so that I make sure that his users continue to use my app and, quite frankly, generate revenue for me? And this is, again, the same lesson we got from behavioral targeting. So what we said is, we need to create a behavioral targeting and therefore a behavioral analytics platform to actually address that problem that's going to be a big problem on mobile apps. And that's the genesis of the company.
So, I mean, is what you're doing, how do you differentiate what you're doing from some of the other analytics companies out there? Because you're more on the behavioral side rather than just the straight reporting side? Or do you do some analysis on the back end that say, listen, you know, suggestions or best practices or anything along those lines?
Well, there's plenty in what you already said. So some of the answer is in your question. But let me put it this way. Let us step back for a second.
Sure.
Right? And let's continue with that that comparison of the web, you know, behavioral targeting and the mobile app, and how we were thinking about, by the way, starting Apsalar. You know, when you think about the web, really the real issue is a conversion issue.
Right.
A person comes in, you know, there is a great company, I don't know if you heard of them, it's called Google, and they've created a huge industry called SEM, yeah, and SEO, by the way, and that really solved a huge problem for a web marketer when it comes to traffic, right? You can get a lot of traffic to your site. So therefore, increasing revenue on the web is it's all a logic of conversion and conversion only. But when you think about mobile, that logic doesn't come at the fore. There is a more important logic that, quite frankly, needs to be addressed, a more important problem that, quite frankly, needs to be addressed before the logic of conversion, and it is engagement.
Right.
And by that I mean that apps are really siloed. You know, people download an app. You would actually be interested to hear that we've run analysis across all of our clients, and what we've seen is that once a user has downloaded an app, if 100 users have downloaded your app, let's say, okay, if you start looking at the number of users that have opened the app a fourth or a fifth time after the download, you're in less than 10% of the people that have downloaded. So you have spent all that money to actually get these 100 folks, and you end up with maybe 5 of them still using the app after 3 or 4 times. So there is a real issue of engagement in mobile. The problem is you want people to reopen your app. You want people to use your app. You want people to actually be engaged with it before you can have a chance to actually monetize them and convert them into revenue. So we didn't start with analytics. What we said is what we need is really an infrastructure that allows you to manage engagement on mobile. And not only with your app, but across all of your apps. Because as a publisher, you end up usually having more than one app. Depending on the verticals, let's say in gaming, you can end up having 12, 15 apps that you're releasing in a year. In other vertical, it's a smaller number of apps, but you still have that issue of having more than one app. So you want to have a way to really measure engagement, optimize it, and then turn that optimized engagement into revenue across the same platform, across all of your apps. So we really are seeing ourselves as a mobile engagement management platform. And really, the way we like to think about it is that it's the only platform that allows you you being the mobile app publisher, for a full user lifecycle management. You want to have the ability to engage with the same user at any time, at anywhere, whether they are in your app or in another app of yours, or quite frankly, anywhere in the mobile app ecosystem. The idea is you want to carry that knowledge of that user. Each time you have a chance to engage them, you have a chance to touch them, and leverage that data, leverage that knowledge you have about them to actually maximize the chance to re-engage them and then monetize them. That's really the spirit of what we're doing.
So talk about that. Talk about that, because I mean, it's pretty amazing, right? You know, during the web days, it was cookies, right? It was you know, tracking by cookies, and there was an uproar around you know, tailored or customized ads to you. Now we accept the fact that in Gmail you're going to get ads based on what's in your email, and it's no big deal. So we've come quite a bit. But talk about how you how what you guys are doing allows you to target and engage with a user of an application. What kind? Give me an example of something like that, where I've you know, I'm in the app, or I'm in another app, and you've watched me progress through one app to the other, obviously with my permission. But give me an example of how one of your customers, or how you would have engaged with me.
Absolutely. By the way, before I fully address your question, we also have a lot of drama about user identification here in mobile. So, and I'm happy to talk about that if you wanted me to. But let me address your question.
Sure.
Let's take a game. Let's take a gaming publisher in mobile. These guys, they want you to come back and play the game and go up different levels. And the reason they are doing that is not to entertain you. Obviously, they are entertaining you by doing so. But at the end of the day, what they want you is to spend money on digital goods, right? So think about a user that came into the game and that reached level 20 in the game. He was very engaged, never spent any money, and then it's been like 3 or 4 days that we didn't see him.
Yeah.
Whereas in the past, because the analytics will tell you that, he was coming up every hour. He or she was coming up every hour. After a couple of days, you have a high risk of losing that person, right, especially in the gaming industry. What you want is, you want to have an opportunity when they are on a third-party app that has nothing to do with your apps, and where they're doing something, let's say, Foursquare, checking into a local merchant. You want to have the opportunity to show them an ad that says, hey, we miss you. Why don't you come back? And guess what? If you come back, we'll give you free digital goods if you actually make a purchase of a $10 digital package good. Right. And they see that and they feel, wow, these guys are rewarding me for my high engagement in the past. I click on it, and once I click on it, it relaunches the app. And when it relaunches the app, it doesn't bring me to where everybody goes, which is the beginning of the game, and here's the level you were in. It actually gives me a splash page that is personalized to me, and says, welcome back. And you know what? Here's that great digital good offer that we suggested into the ad, and here it is for you. Just click there, and you're one click away of getting these free digital goods as long as you spend that $10. That's basically a good example of what we're doing with some of our gaming company. So, but when you step back, there is a whole structure to all this. Mm-hmm. And the way we look at this is, you are going to do a great mobile engagement management program if you go actually through the 3 pillars that we think are very important for you to maximize the success of your campaign. So think of us as really the life after the download marketing infrastructure company, right? Right. And there are 3 integrated capabilities, and I use the word integrated because if you sum these capabilities from one, let's say you have a lot of point solutions out there that may actually compare to us on any of these 3 capabilities that, by the way, we called here analyze, optimize, and monetize. And I'm going to spend more time on each of them if you allow me. But if you were to take analyze from provider 1, optimize from provider 2, and monetize from provider 3, what you're going to have is a sum of all these parts. But we argue here that the integration of all this gives you something that is more valuable than the sum. So let's talk about, unless you want
No,
to
let's talk about the three pillars, because I think it's a good transition.
So analyze. What is analyze? First is the analytics. Your first imperative is really to understand the lay of the land, right? If you're a publisher, you've said, I have this app, I've got all these downloads, now what? Well, now what? It first starts with a series of questions like, how's my app doing?
Yep.
Why is it performing well or poorly in certain areas? And with what kind of users am I doing great? With what kind of users or type of user I'm not doing so great? And what can be done to improve the user experience? Am I monetizing enough? All these are very important questions. So you really must understand as a mobile app publisher and segment, must understand your user and segment them, right? So for that, we've really built what we think to date is the most powerful mobile analytics technology out there. It's a behavioral analytics technology that is cross apps, because what you want at the end of the day is to be user-centric. You don't want to be app-centric. It doesn't make sense, right? And we are offering you very easy to use at the UI level, and we brought it really to the masses, things that really allows you to start creating correlations between behaviors and engagement, behaviors and revenues. So for that, the kind of tools that you're looking at is having very flexible cohort analysis for not only retention, but also engagement and monetization. You want to have the ability to do conversion funnels within the app or across multiple apps. You want to have revenue analytics, lifetime value analytics. You want to have a way to quantify the engagement level of your user so you can actually find the correlation between engagement and revenue. All this has to be offered to you in a way that allows you to really answer these questions. What are the behaviors that are driving engagement? What are the type of users that are engaged? What are the behavior that are driving engagement that are in turn driving monetization? You're not going to answer these questions without analytics. If you have no analytics, and quite frankly, good analytics, it's like you're driving a car at 100 miles per hour in the middle of nowhere. It's the middle of the night and you have no lights. That's basically what you're doing. You spent all that money to acquire these users, and you don't even know why they're not coming back.
So true. It's so true, and you see that all the time because there's so many dead apps out there, or or abandoned applications or abandoned properties, and it's basically like burning money at the same time.
Yes.
So you've got that. You've got the analyze part down. We understand that, and then it leads. And then what do you do with that data?
Well, a lot of people think analytics is the answer, right?
Yeah.
And it's not.
What do you mean it's not? All we hear is, listen, analytics. It's Google Analytics. It's analytics. And then the answers are right in there. And you're saying, no, it's not.
No, it's not the answer. It's not the answer for two reasons. First, you got to use it as a way to serve your goals. People use analytics and then ask themselves the questions. They deploy the analytics and then they say, why am I looking at that data? No. You first need to understand what are your goals, what are your objectives, and then what are the questions that I need answers so that I can reach these objectives.
So instead of saying, oh, you know what, I should have built a game instead of that app, right? Because that's looking at analytics saying, hey, nobody's using it. Hey, I should have bought a game. But so what you're saying is logical, which is get your goals up front. Start with something in mind and then build towards that.
Exactly, and that's the first common mistake that people do when they use analytics. But then the second, I'm not going to call it a mistake, but I'm going to call it a frustration, comes from the fact that even people that use analytics as a great way to help them answer all these questions end up being frustrated because analytics are a means to an end. They're not an end unto themselves.
Right.
They're not. I mean, who wakes up in the morning and say, hey, I'm going to use analytics today?
Well, maybe you guys. Yeah.
Yeah, well, because we're geeks and we ended up doing it, so many times that we end up finding value and beauty in it. But quite frankly, they're a means to an end.
Just like the fact that the download isn't the end of your goal.
It is actually the beginning of
Right.
everything, right?
Okay.
So the next step is having a way to leverage all that knowledge. You took that data, you turned it into knowledge, and you want to take all that knowledge that you derive from the analytics to do really two things. And these are the two other pieces that I wanted to mention. The first one is to optimize the user experience for one goal, which is a big one, increasing user engagement.
Mm-hmm.
And the second, once that engagement is now optimized and high, you want that to actually be turned into revenues. So this is actually the two pieces that come with it, and that shows that the analytics are not the answer by itself. It actually works in tandem with the optimization part and the monetization part. Let's talk about optimize for a second.
Let me ask you one question though before you do that. I mean, why don't we define what? So user engagement is a term that's kind of bandied about. It's a broad term. Is there a way that you would quickly define user engagement?
User engagement is a very, very loose terms out there.
Yes.
What we do here at Apsalar is we let you define what engagement is. We let you actually quantify and select the user actions that are happening in your app that you're thinking are proxy of good engagement.
All right.
So obviously it starts with retention, reopening the app, but that's the very beginning of engagement. When you think about an e-commerce app, I would argue that adding something to a cart is a very high engagement proxy. I would argue that creating a wish list is also a high, not as high as adding to a cart, but also a high engagement proxy. Gaming. I would argue that reaching level 25 on a 30 level game is a very high level of engagement. I would argue that reaching level 1 is also engagement, but certainly lower than reaching level 25. So you gotta have that. You gotta have that conversation with your analytics provider as to what is engagement, which user action I need to actually tag in there, so that I can quantify engagement in a very, very scientific manner, so I can correlate it with with revenue, and that's obviously part of the analytics.
Those are good examples. Thank you.
No, sure. Now, once you have done that, you can optimize and then monetize. So the optimization piece is basically, you're here. You know that. Let me take another example. You know that with the people that have done that in the past, so you can create some behavioral segments to actually, because segmentation is very revealing. You play with it and you see that different type of people have different type of behaviors, and you have narrowed down through analytics that there is an issue with user engagement for people within that segment at this part of the app. That's great. How do you solve that?
Right.
Well, you don't want to create another app just for these guys. You don't want to go through building a new build and putting a new version out there, and you don't want to go through this, approval of process through the App Store. Even on Android, it's very simple, but still, it's a process to push a new app. So what you do is you want to have a way to, in real time, recognize who that person is when they hit the app at that exact point where you have a problem. And only for the people that you have a problem, change the user experience. And serve them something server-side, right? Serve them something that may address the problem. And I say may because it's all about trial and errors. What you want to do is you want to A/B test. You want to say for people in the let's call it low lifetime value segment. You can create a segment of people that have never done a digital goods purchase. There is a problem as soon as they reach level 1 in that game.
Yeah.
So you want on that piece, for only on that part of the game, just for these guys that are in that segment, you want to try something else. You want to try, 1, 2, or 3 different experiences that are going to be served in a very fair way throughout all the people that are hitting your game within the next 2 or 3 days, and you want to see which one is actually generating a higher engagement. Now remember, in Analyze, we actually quantified engagement, so you have a great way to look back and see gee, I have a lift in engagement with that.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with that specific piece. So you're starting to personalize your app. You go through trial and error by using A/B testing methods. And then once you have found the best experience, you start narrowing down on the right experience for the right segments. And you have now a higher engagement. Okay? Does that make sense?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's like, from a guy who who loves this. I've talked a lot about, and I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs who are involved in this, and especially in the app space. They say, like, my goal is 1 million downloads, or my goal is 10 million downloads, or 100,000 downloads. And I always ask that question: is like, is that called user hoarding? At the end of the day, like, why do you need 1 million users? How engaged are you with those 1 million? How many are buying? I'd hate to go through that effort to generate that kind of interest in something that I've put my heart and soul into it, and I've brought it up to that point where I've reached my threshold of downloads, and then try to turn some revenue on right away and nobody buy, because that's heartbreaking, right?
And quite frankly, it could be bankruptcy as well.
Absolutely.
If you spend money to get these guys, there is a harsh reality, which is an economic reality. At some point, you're going to run out of money. I mean, we've seen that. We've seen that in the early days of the .com area.
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting that you are as old as I am, but I am.
Yes, exactly. I appreciate that subtleness, and this is where I would volunteer that I said, yes, I am. I was there.
Well,
I participated back then.
Well, thank you for being supportive.
Exactly. We are two old guys sitting here talking about the good old days. I remember it.
Exactly. And we've seen that movie, right?
Yeah.
People just throwing money at the board just to see what's sticking, and at the end of the day, they run out of cash.
Yeah.
And this is where, after the .com crash, that we've started to see, the industry of conversion optimization, which is you've already have traffic thanks to that small company called Google, and now you need to make something out of it. It's the same idea here.
Yeah.
So that's your optimization.
Yep.
Now let's assume that you are now beyond the optimization, and you've done a good work in terms of engagement. Some apps, by the way, don't need to go through the optimization because they have naturally a good engagement level, right?
Yep.
But let's say now you have a good engagement level. The logic of increasing engagement and optimizing it starts to fade away. And really, we come back to that logic of conversion now. And the logic here is, now I have an engaged user. I have information about him or her. How can I use that information and the fact that they're engaged, in other words, that I'm talking to them, to actually convince them to give me some of their money? Because quite frankly, most of the apps out there are trying to make money. Otherwise, it's, again, not sustainable. So you need that way to convert engagement into revenue. And we think that to reach the highest level of efficiency to do that, you need to be able to engage your users anytime, anywhere, no matter whether they are in your app, in another app of yours, or some third-party app that is not even touched by Apsalar, quite frankly, because Apsalar is still a startup. It's they're not touching all the apps out there, and the reason for that is you've built data, you've built knowledge that is going to give you an edge as an app publisher to actually have a high likelihood of showing the right offer to the person that will have a higher likelihood of being converted upon, because you know them. You know what they liked in the past. You know what they bought. You know the kind of digital goods package they bought. You know when they bought it. There's plenty of information in there that you can leverage. But if you don't touch them, if you don't engage them, well, all this data is sitting like a sitting duck in your database, in Apsalar database. You need a way to actually reach them. So this is why we're going to give you a way to actually start personalizing offers within your app or across multiple apps. Think about a guy, a mobile game publisher. I like to use that example because there are multi games where they are now at game number 2, and there is on game number 2 that just released a user that was a game 1 user, right? Where they spent a lot of money based on certain preferences. You have that information. You can actually have a higher likelihood of converting them quite quickly to a digital goods package based on the information that you have on game 1. Right. And you do it directly within the app. So that's part of monetization. But then, unfortunately, the laws of conversion makes it, and engagement, especially in the mobile ecosystem, makes it that for 100 guys that have used your app, at any point in time, there is only one or two of them that are within your app. 98 of them are actually somewhere else. They are either on Foursquare or reading an article on the New York Times or playing another game.
Right.
So this is where the anytime, anywhere it becomes very important. We want them to also have a way to actually go and reach them through a targeted ad, and call that retargeting if you want, and bring them back in the app. And I gave you an example a little bit earlier about that. Bring them back in the app and have them do the next logical thing that you want them to do, whether it's finishing, turning that wish list into a cart, or finishing that cart into a checkout and pay, or reach the next level of the game, or buy the digital good package that didn't convert upon. You want to have a way to actually do that and bring them back within the app. So that's where the loop actually loops back into it, and then you go back to the analytics and you're seeing your ARPU, your RPPU, your average revenue per user, and your average revenue per paid user go up, and you're seeing how the change in that parameter is actually impacting either positively or negatively ARPU or RPPU.
So it's incredible. Analyze, optimize, and monetize. I mean, you know, a lot of people talk about that, but it's a very thorough process that you go through. You know, and you can start to see, and I'm hoping that you guys who are listening or watching, as Michael was talking, you're starting to formulate the ideas, is that this is just it's a circle. So once you've done it once and you've gone through that process, you go through and keep refining that, don't you?
Absolutely.
Like, it doesn't end, like just because you've gone through once.
Absolutely. It doesn't end, and it actually in the process gets you a better app, happier customers, and quite frankly more revenues. Otherwise it's not working. And to finalize on that, because I think I was still answering your question how we are different. I hope I actually explained how the capabilities are different, the philosophy is different, the fact that analytics is a means, not an end by itself. And I would add another layer of differentiation, which is helping our customers. A lot of these things can be daunting for customers.
Yes.
So we created a client success department where we're building best practices by vertical, you know, gaming, e-commerce, financial services, etc., that we staffed with very intelligent people who love data, who love the logic of personalization and optimization, and we're helping our client think about all of this.
So what about, you know, I'm so intrigued by I mean, that's like such a great summary. You answered every single one of my questions, but I've just got a few more around, you know, the appropriate metrics to be measuring here. Now, you've got a best practices group, but, you know, people are still measuring their success in downloads. Like, I hear this all the time. So Instagram is a perfect example. It's a company that I love. I use the app. I tell everybody I use this app. I'm just trying to figure out how they're going to turn that into revenue, but they tout the numbers like Foursquare does. Hey, we've got 12 million downloads, and you know, our active engagement rate is about 40%, and all these kind of things. But do those numbers matter? Should we be looking at those numbers and being impressed, or should we look at them and say, well, really, okay, tell me what your ARPU is, or tell me what should, when we hear those numbers, what should we be thinking?
Well, looking only at the download numbers is suicide, right? You're just killing yourself. It's very dangerous. I don't want to talk about a specific company in
right. No, that's fine. Yeah.
But quite frankly, what you have right now is you have a lot of, especially here in this area of the world, you have a lot of VC money flowing, and people are raising too much money to actually go and buy downloads, and you don't have investors that are keeping them accountable by saying, okay, all this is great, you're spending all this money, but how are you going to make money? I think at some point, everybody's going to wake up. It reminds me the dot-com crash, right? Everybody is going to wake up and say, okay, guys, that's great. You guys can acquire, you guys can spend money and acquire users are good customer acquisition costs, but what is the lifetime value of these users?
Right.
Are you generating more revenue than what you're spending on them? And at some point, you should ask yourself, is it more cost effective to actually deepen the relationship with an existing user than to acquire a new one and start from scratch? And you know where I end up on that debate.
I think so. Well,
So I think it's a very short-sighted way of looking at things. I think your metrics are retention, engagement, and monetization. And there is a lot of, and these are the big categories, right? And there is a lot of metrics within these big categories that are important to you. And then there are tools to actually correlate all these metrics so that you can start actually making a dent into retention, engagement, and monetization.
I think I mean, we agree there. You know, I always ask that question. It has to be asked. I said, I mean, how do these companies plan to make money? Because they're not going to get $1 per user. They're not going to get $10 per user because they don't know yet. They haven't figured that out. And you know, we live in a pretty amazing time with the mobile space, where as a software developer, independent or other, you can create something in your basement or a small team or a big team and put it out into the ether and have thousands and thousands and thousands of people access and download that product. It's a miracle time, because back when I grew up with the desktop world, right? You know, when somebody bought your product or when you sold 100 licenses, you felt, you know, I've succeeded. And now there are thousands of downloads or millions of downloads, and people are ho-hum about that, right? Like,
absolutely,
it's staggering to me. And because give me 100 people that have downloaded the product, and I want to convert 98 of those. Yeah. I don't want to convert 2% of 100,000. Like, I want to deep dive with those existing customers.
Yes, and by the way, and I don't think it's good news if you don't have a monetization strategy. It's great news if you have a monetization strategy. Right. And frankly, your strategy can be, I don't know how I'm going to monetize, but at least I'm going to try.
Figure it out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's okay not to have one, but you need to think about it, and you need to actually arm yourself with the right provider to help you get there. And I strongly argue that Apsalar is that provider. But if you take that problem that you're talking about, which is now we have a huge sheer numbers of downloads that is a factor of 1,000 or 10,000 bigger than what we use on desktop. Well, if you don't have a strategy, you just multiply your problem by 10,000.
Absolutely.
So it goes very fast. What I'm saying is that the route to success, like the route to failure, is a very quick route.
Well, you know, we often say, and then we'll end this this piece of it. But I often say that you know, when it comes to mobile, it can enhance your brand and it can kill your brand. So if you're not paying attention to it, it can really harm your brand. And if you pay close attention to it and nurture that relationship with the end user, don't abuse it, and then don't leave your product for dead, you can actually enhance your brand exceptionally well through mobile.
Exactly, and I think we're going to get there on mobile.
So let me ask you this: speaking about revenue, how do you guys plan to make some money? I know you're a startup, but how do you guys plan? Which is great. You mentioned it right before we started filming. Is that you do have a revenue plan, a revenue strategy? How are you guys going to do that?
You know, it's alarmingly simple.
Oh, I like it. I like that though.
Yes, and the analytics is free, and it is, as I said, the best mobile analytics technology to date out there, but it still is free. And the reason it's free, it's because we want people to actually start thinking about the real problems that they have, and at the same time give us a chance to show them that we can do something for them.
Right.
So out of all the people that take our analytics, some of them will say, "Oh, I'm frustrated. I've done the analytics so well, and you helped me there, but I want to leverage all that knowledge now to optimize and monetize and start generating revenue for my apps using that data." And this is where we make them pay. So the optimize monetize piece is actually not free.
It's not free.
So the optimize and monetize is basically a paid it's a paid service that is being paid not on a professional service basis, but mainly on performance. We help you increase ARPU, we help you increase lifetime value, and you pay us based on that.
So I mean, you've got skin in the game there as well. So
absolutely,
you take a percentage of what they're doing in terms of their revenue bump, or when they succeed, you get paid.
It's more a performance-based approach than a percentage.
Okay.
So it's a CPC or CPA approach.
Yeah, so it's putting your money or their money, putting your money where your mouth is, basically saying,
Absolutely.
listen, we believe in the product so much that you're going to benefit as a result of this, so we're willing to take a little bit of the risk as well.
Yeah, and
Uh,
that's the way it should be.
well, I think so. I think as everybody and I'm going to assume that you're going to evaluate this over a period of time and see if it works, and if it doesn't work, you're going to adjust it like you're telling everybody else to do based on analytics and.
Listen, we're preaching optimization based on data.
Yeah.
So we're gonna apply that to ourselves, obviously.
That's a
So
lot of pressure, right? Like,
yeah.
because you guys have to succeed really in order to be able to say, listen, well, we understand data. We understand how to convert data into dollars, which is ultimately what you're doing. So I like that.
Yeah, well, we don't have to succeed. We have to help our clients succeed.
Right.
That's where the success comes from. Yeah.
Let me ask you one last thing. What about funding? So you guys are in the middle of the Silicon Valley. You're San Francisco based. This to me is an industry. What you guys are doing. So you're talking analyze, optimize, and monetize. There are very few companies that are doing this. Very few companies that are doing this right. A lot of companies are being picked up. Being bought by larger companies. But are you funded, angel funded, out there looking for funding? I mean, how are you guys sustaining your business right now?
Yeah, great question. We are funded.
Oh, you
We
are
actually
funded. Okay.
we went through 2 rounds of funding. One seed funding of about $1 million,
Okay.
and we just closed a Series A funding of another $5 million on top of that. So we raised about $6 million to date, and the VCs that backed us are Tom Vest VC. Tom Vest is the Thomson Reuters family, Battery Ventures, and a VC from the UK called DN Capital. DN as David Nancy.
And was it difficult to convince them or to walk them through this process to get people engaged in this, or did they see the value right away?
The one that invested saw the value right away. The one that passed didn't see the value. How's that?
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Not yet. Maybe they'll come back. That's a victory when they come back to you and say,
So I think what we're doing is something that you need to understand because you've been exposed to it somehow. And so if you have some VCs out there that are financial spreadsheeters. They do spreadsheets all the time, and you have operational VCs that have an understanding of marketing. The latter will actually understand what we're doing better.
Right.
But so yeah, finding money in Silicon Valley these days, I hear is not that difficult. I don't know that it's so true. What is true though is that if you have a real business, real traction, like we were able to show. And the right team to actually execute on that business and on that vision, it's usually not that difficult to find money.
Doesn't sound like it. I love the company. I got last question. What keeps you up at night? What is it about this industry, this mobile space, that kind of you look at and it's either a fright or an excitement? What keeps you up at night about the mobile space?
Well, let me tell you, the mobile space doesn't keep me awake at night. Actually, the mobile space is actually a great space. It's a space that is booming. It's a space that is growing. There is convergence of a lot of user experience towards mobile right now. And the mobile gaming industry has just shown as the tip of the iceberg what can be done.
Right.
So this is not where I worry the most. Where I'm worried the most is we live or we are based in an area of the country where there is way too much money for very early startup that are completely overfunded. So I'm talking angel and seed money is flowing around way too much. And what it creates a lot of companies. And I'm not saying that in an arrogant way, but it's actually, unfortunately, true. You have a lot of small companies that really don't have a business, but that are able to attract a lot of top talent. Mm-hmm. And what you end up is being in a situation where it's very difficult to find the right people. And quite frankly, you can have the best idea on the best market. If you don't have the best people, you will never have a long-lasting company. Finding the best people is what keeps me awake at night.
Well said. Well said, Michael. Man, I can't believe I've monopolized this much of your time. I've got to say that the insight and basically, well, the insight that you've provided for this is unbelievable.
Oh,
As a guy who does this quite often, well over 330 or 340 interviews now. When I don't say anything for that stretch of time, it's because I'm completely enraptured by what you're saying. So I'm a data geek. I love this, and I kind of equate the whole thing. What I've gone through, what I've learned here from you is I'm going to put it in baseball terms. I'm a baseball fan. It's literally knowing the right pitch at the right count at the right time of the game with the infield and the outfield at the right spot to get the batter out with a game on the line. And that's what you're preaching here in that 3-step process of analyze, optimize, and monetize. Ultimately, that's the way I've distilled it.
That's great. I tell you what, if next time you're in San Francisco, you just earned yourself a beer on me.
Yeah. And I'll be there. You can count on it.
Okay.
Michael, where do people find more information about you guys?
Apsalar.com, APSALAR.com. Everything is in there.
I know you guys. This is stuff that you should be looking at. We all need these independent software developers who are building great product to survive. I need you to understand what people are doing with your product, when they're using it, and how you can bring them back, and how you can keep bringing them back, and then how you can turn those guys into a little bit of revenue so that you can build the next product or the next version. Please look at something like Apsalar. Go to apsalar.com and check it out. And if you have any questions about it, just reach out. These guys, they don't call them customer service. What did you call them before?
Client success
reps. So go and task them with helping them or helping you make some money for what you're doing. Please. That's my
Thank
plea.
you, Rob.
That's my plea. I've been speaking with Michael Oiknine. Michael, I can't thank you enough for being a part of this. Really great. I love this episode. Great insight. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
Guys who are still watching or listening, wherever you may be, whatever you are doing, I really appreciate the fact that you've done this, sat and listened to this. And if you have any feedback, as always, reach out at untetheredgmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. If you have any suggestions, comments, anything at all, do it through that email address. I would love to hear from you. Michael, thank you for being a part of this, you guys. Thanks for watching and listening. We'll see you next time on untether.tv.
Thank you.